All right, today we're diving into a fascinating comparison between two economies that, honestly, couldn't be more different. We've got the established titan, the United States, and the rising challenger, Peru. It's really a classic story, power versus potential.
So which story is more compelling? Is it the overwhelming force of a global giant or the surprising speed of an up-and-coming challenger? It's kind of like the classic matchup, right? The heavyweight champion versus the fast, agile sprinter.
Okay, first things first. To really get what's going on, we need to talk about scale. And I mean, we need to wrap our heads around just how massive the difference between these two economies really is. Let's kick things off with the United States. We're talking about its GDP, or gross domestic product, which is basically a measure of everything the country makes and sells in a year. And that number? It's projected to hit an absolutely mind-boggling $30 trillion in 2025. Just to be clear, that makes it the largest economy on the planet, and by a huge margin.
Okay, now let's flip over to Peru. For 2025, its economy is looking at around $318 billion. Now, that is a really solid number, don't get me wrong. But you can already feel just how different the playing field is here.
And this really puts it all in perspective. The U.S. economy isn't just a little bigger, it's over 90 times larger than Peru's. It's not even a skyscraper versus a house at this point. It's more like an entire city skyline versus a single building. The difference in sheer economic output is just staggering.
But, a huge national economy doesn't automatically mean everyone's rolling in cash. So what does all that economic firepower actually mean for the average person living there? Let's zoom in a bit and talk about individual prosperity.
So this is where we look at GDP per capita.
It's a fancy term, but it's pretty simple.
You just take the whole economy and divide it by the number of people. It gives us a ballpark idea of the average income. And whoa, look at the difference. In the US, you're looking at over $89,000. In Peru, it's closer to $9,000. That's a massive gap, and it affects everything, from what you earn to what you can buy.
Okay, so right now it sounds like a total blowout, right? The US is bigger, the average person is wealthier, game over. But hold on, because this is where the story gets really interesting. We're about to change the rules of the game from size to speed.
And that begs the question, right? Is being the biggest the only thing that matters? Does the giant always win the race? Well, not necessarily. This is where our sprinter gets a chance to shine.
And boom, here's the twist. Look at 2024. Peru's economy actually grew faster than the US, about 3.3% versus 2.8%. Now check out the forecast for 2025. Peru is expected to keep that faster pace, while the US is projected to slow down. So what's the big takeaway here? Peru might be smaller, but it's moving quick. So what's going on? How can that be? Well, it's because Peru is what economists call an emerging economy. Think about it like this. If you have $10, doubling your money to 20 is pretty achievable. But if you have $10 trillion, doubling it is, well, a lot harder. Peru is starting from a lower base, so it just has way more room to grow and grow fast.
Okay, to really get why they're on such different tracks, we gotta pop the hood and look at what's actually powering these two economic engines. And we also have to look at what might slow them down.
And you can see right away they're running on completely different fuel. Peru's engine is fired up by its rich natural resources. We're talking mining, commodities, plus a boost from private investment and people buying more stuff. The US, on the other hand, it's a super complex, diversified machine running on things like tech, financial services, and super advanced industry.
But no road is perfectly smooth. Every economy, big or small, has its own set of bumps and potential roadblocks ahead, and they face very different kinds of challenges.
For Peru, the big risks are actually tied to its greatest strengths. All that private investment it needs, it could get scared off by political instability. And being so reliant on things like copper means your whole economy can be on a roller coaster depending on what happens in global markets. If the price of copper tanks, that hits Peru's budget hard.
The US is dealing with a whole different set of headaches, the kind you get when you're a massive, mature economy. You've got high public debt, which can make everything more expensive. You've got the constant battle with inflation, and then there's navigating tricky global trade relationships. But maybe the biggest worry is the American consumer. If they stop spending, that's like hitting the brakes on the main engine of the whole economy. So when you put it all together, the size, the wealth, the growth, the risks, what does the future actually hold? Let's check out the projections and see where these two different paths are heading. And as we look out over the next few years, the pattern really holds. Yeah, growth is probably going to slow down a bit for everyone. That's just the global picture.
But the key thing is, Peru's consistently forecast to grow faster than the United States. The sprinter is still setting the pace.
You know, this really brings us to a simple but powerful summary. One has the power, the other has the pace. It's just a perfect way to think about it. The US is the established powerhouse. Peru is the fast-moving challenger. They're on two completely different journeys.
And that leaves us with this final really important question to think about. For the future of any economy, what matters more? The sheer size and power it has today, or the speed and potential it shows for tomorrow? It's really a question of established might versus future momentum. And the answer is something that's going to shape our world for years to come.